Imagine this. You're at an academic shindig in a foreign land and you bump into someone who lights up your world. That's exactly where our story begins, in the midst of scholarly chatter and exotic accents. There I met him, James. He was like a beacon in the night, a lifeline in the dark after my 7-year love story had turned to ash. There was something about James that drew me in, a spark that ignited whenever he was around. Our connection was palpable, but I couldn't shake off a nagging suspicion. I decided to play detective, delving into the digital maze of his social media. There, amidst the myriad of posts and pictures, I found her. A snapshot of James and a woman arm in arm, just a few months old. It stirred a storm of questions in my mind. Was she the one still holding his heart? Our days were spent in the same resort, a week-long academic event that had us glued together. James and I were inseparable, our bond growing stronger with each passing day. But the question of his relationship status was like a ghost lingering in the shadows. So, I took a leap of faith. I asked James about his love life. His response was as complicated as our situation. He revealed that he had been with his girl for almost 2 years, but they were on a break, their dreams and paths pulling them in different directions. As the night turned into day, we found ourselves under the moon, painting stories with our words. The week was like a dance, a secret language that only James and I could understand. We were soaked in a mix of desire and perhaps a few too many cocktails. And so, under the moonlight, we began to paint our stories, a dance only we understood. As the dawn of the last day approached, a cold chill settled between us. The once vibrant James had turned into a distant silhouette, his eyes lost in thoughts far beyond my reach. The laughter and stories that once flowed freely were now replaced by an icy silence. His excuse? He called it conference brain, a supposed side effect of being swallowed whole by the vortex of work. I chose to believe him. I chose to find comfort in his words, to ignore the hollowness that echoed in the silence. I told myself perhaps it was just the stress, the fatigue of a week-long academic marathon. A month later, we found ourselves in the same orbit once again. This time it was my town, my turf. A rendezvous, we called it, a chance to untangle the knots that had woven themselves around our hearts. The moment we met, sparks flew like 4th of July fireworks. It was as if the universe itself was conspiring to keep us entwined. However, it was during this meeting that James decided to lift the veil of deceit. He confessed that he had fibbed back at the conference. His relationship with his girl hadn't hit pause. In fact, it was as strong as ever. He admitted to painting a picture of a break that never existed. I felt a pang of betrayal, a sting of deception. But then, he spoke of the undeniable pull, the fire that had ignited between us. It was a force, he said, that refused to be extinguished. It was a pull, a fire that neither of us could deny. And so, in the face of this uncomfortable truth, I made a decision. I chose to surrender, to step into the shadows and dance to the rhythm of this forbidden symphony. I chose to live in the stolen moments, to etch passion into the canvas of the night. Because despite the consequences, despite the risk, this was a fire that I, too, couldn't deny. In the shadows we whispered secrets, our moments stolen, our passion etched into the night. That's where our tale of stolen love begins. In the hushed whispers and stolen glances, a forbidden dance spun between James and me. A dance that was alluring and intoxicating, and yet, we both knew it was wrong. Each rendezvous was a secret painting, brushed with the vibrant hues of desire and longing. Our connection was electric, a live wire that sparked with every touch, every shared smile. It was a pull too powerful to resist, a flame that burned with a fierce intensity. We were drawn together, two bodies orbiting each other in a dance as old as time. James, the man with 1,000 faces, yet none of them truly his own. He was a chameleon, shifting his colors to blend into my world. His eyes twinkled with mischief, his laughter was infectious, and his touch set my skin on fire. He was a lifeline in the stormy seas of my life, a beacon that drew me in. And then there was me, a moth drawn to his flame. I knew the fire would burn, and yet I danced closer, entranced by his warmth. I was a willing participant in this stolen love, a willing thief in the night. I surrendered to the shadows, let them cloak our secret meetings, our stolen moments. I reveled in the thrill of it all, the rush of adrenaline that coursed through my veins whenever I was with him. Our stolen moments were a sweet symphony, a harmony of stolen kisses and whispered promises. But amidst the sweet symphony, a discordant note rang out, a note that reminded us of the truth we chose to ignore, a truth that was personified by her, the woman who held his heart. And then she appeared, the keeper of his heart, a mirror to his deepest desires. She stepped into the picture, a stark contrast to the shadowy world we had created. She was the reality to our fantasy, the dawn to our twilight. She was the woman he loved, and I was just the woman he desired. In the still of the night, alone with my thoughts, I penned my goodbye. The air hung heavy, pregnant with the weight of unspoken words and silent tears. There was a sharpness to the silence, a cruel reminder of the love that had once roared in the corners of my heart, now reduced to a mere whisper. I found myself at the crossroads of heartache and longing, torn between the magnetic pull of James and the haunting specter of his love for another. I had seen them together, swaying in the glow of their love. It was an image that played on a continuous loop in my mind's eye, a cruel reminder of the forbidden fruit I had tasted. I remember the way his eyes lit up when he saw her, the way his laughter filled the room, the way he held her close. It was a love so palpable, so real, it was almost tangible. I was a spectator to their dance, a silent witness to a love story that was not mine to tell. The ache was unbearable. It was as though a piece of my heart had been ripped out. I felt hollow, empty, a shell of the woman I once was. But I knew deep down that this was a necessary pain, a pain that would eventually lead to healing. So I poured my heart out on paper. I wrote about the stolen moments, the late-night whispers, the shared laughter, and the shared tears. I wrote about the love that had bloomed in the shadows, a love that was as beautiful as it was forbidden. But most importantly, I wrote about the goodbye, the bitter farewell that was necessary for my own healing. It was a letter filled with love, regret, and a painful acceptance of the truth. I sealed the letter, my heart heavy with the weight of the words it contained. Then, with a quiet resolve, I let go. I let go of James, of the stolen moments, of the love that was never meant to be. I let go, and in doing so, I found a sliver of peace. The chapters were sealed, the story etched in time. I whispered to the silent night, a single tear tracing the path of my regret. 6 long months have passed, echoes of our stolen moments still lingering. The aftermath of this whirlwind romance was a storm of emotions. The love that had bloomed and withered so quickly left a mark that was as profound as it was painful. It's a strange thing to grieve for a love that never really was. A love that was a blazing comet, burning too bright, too hot, too fast. Each day was a battle against the memories that played like an old film reel in my mind. The stolen glances, the shared laughter, the whispered promises, all now just echoes in the hollow of my heart. The pain was acute, sharp, like shards of glass piercing through the veil of my denial. But along with the pain, there was another emotion, harder to define, harder to bear: regret. Regret for what? For falling for him? For ignoring the signs? For believing in a love that was never meant to be mine? Yes, all of that and more. But the hardest pill to swallow was the regret for the trust I had lost. Trust in him, trust in myself, trust in love. Trust, once as solid as a rock, now lay in ruins. It was a stark reminder of the cost of desire, of the price we pay when we dance with the shadows. Love had always been a beacon of hope, a light in the darkness. But now it seemed like a labyrinth, a maze of confusion and hurt. The aftermath of our love story was not just the end of a chapter, but a transformation. A bitter yet necessary lesson in the school of life. It was as if I had been through a fire, and while it had left its scars, it had also forged a new strength within me. In the shadows, I had tasted the intoxicating mix of ecstasy and regret. It was a dance I had willingly participated in, a dance that had left its imprint on my soul. And even though the music had stopped, the dance lingered on, a sweet and bitter memory that would forever be a part of my story. In the shadows, I found ecstasy and regret, a sweet and bitter dance that lingers in my soul. As the sun peaks over the horizon, casting the world in a soft golden glow, a new chapter in my life begins. The heartbreak, the bitterness, the regret, they are now part of my past. The wounds are still there, yet they no longer ache with the same intensity. Time, the greatest healer, has begun to soothe the sharp edges of my pain. I have started to see the beauty in my scars, the strength in my vulnerability. I have begun to appreciate the wisdom that comes from pain, the growth that comes from adversity. I have learned that sometimes love means letting go. It means accepting that not every love story has a happy ending, but every love story teaches us something. It teaches us about ourselves, about our desires, about our limits. It shows us our strengths and our weaknesses, our triumphs and our failures. It is a mirror that reflects our true selves, no matter how painful the image may be. But most importantly, it teaches us that we are capable of surviving, of healing, of growing. In the solitude of my pain, I discovered a resilient spirit, a spirit that refused to be broken, a spirit that found joy in the simplest of things, a beautiful sunrise, a peaceful walk, a good book. I discovered that I could find happiness within myself, that I didn't need someone else to complete me. As I watched the sunrise, marking the dawn of a new day, I am filled with a sense of peace, a sense of hope. I realize that my story is not a tale of regret, but a journey of self-discovery and resilience, a journey that has led me to this moment, to this dawn, to this new day. And as the sun rises, I rise with it, stronger, wiser, ready to embrace whatever comes my way.